Hello. Welcome to Fundraising Confessions, the truth behind the profession, the podcast produced by Jerry Consulting Group, where nonprofit leaders, fundraisers, and donors spill the tea on what really goes down behind the scenes of the fundraising world. I'm your host, Rochelle Jerry, founder of Jerry Consulting Group and a lifelong nonprofit champion. I started this podcast because after years in the field, I knew we needed a space for truth, a place to tell the stories that don't make the annual report. We're diving into the raw, the ridiculous, the inspiring, and sometimes downright unbelievable moments from the world of fundraising. From shocking donor surprises to last minute campaign saves. This is the real side of the profession you were never supposed to hear. And yeah, we're not just here for the drama. Each episode will end with actionable tips that you can actually use because fundraising doesn't have to be stressful, but it is mission critical. And how do we balance the two and keep our sanity? So, this show invites all of you, the CEOs, the donors, the fundraisers, and the non fundraisers, to share your behind the scenes stories, the raw, the funny, the chaotic, and the incredibly human moments of nonprofit life. And if you've got a story to tell, we want to hear from you. This is your platform too. This is Fundraising Confessions, the truth behind the profession. We're going to get into it with Mr. Ken Miller, President of Denali FSP Fundraising and Grant Consultants. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to read your bio. So if you hang in there with me, let me celebrate you for a few more moments. So Ken Miller, our guest today, is the president and a founding member of Denali FSP Fundraising and Grant Consultants, a firm specializing in fundraising and grant consulting services founded in 2014. Raised in Anchorage, Alaska, Ken graduated from Bartlett High School in 1980 and later at Dartmouth College in 1984. His firm is renowned for strategic fundraising and grant management solutions, helping nonprofits, tribal entities, and government organizations maximize their funding potential. Just some of Ken's certifications and achievements include the CFRE, Certified Fundraising Executive, awarded in 2016, AFP Certified Master Trainer, received in 2017, Outstanding Professional in Philanthropy, honored by the Alaska chapter in 2020. Now, Ken's career highlights also include expert grant consultant, a dynamic fundraising strategist, professional mentorship and training, community and board involvement, and client testimonials. Ken is highly regarded by clients and peers alike for his innovative strategies and commitment to client success. And I can personally say I appreciate all of Ken's contributions to the profession, which has inspired me, and one of the reasons why we have this platform to have these conversations, for voices to be heard and have these conversations. But before we dive in, I want to congratulate you on the release of your new book and your launch party you just had last night. So, Becoming Ken, One Black Man's Journey from Ivy League to Prison and Back Again. Congratulations on your book and your release. You can purchase on Amazon today. And what a fantastic launch party you had. So, if you just want to say a few words about the launch of your book and, how do you feel about the success of it?
Well, it is a success because I did it. It was a 3-year process. I would
That's
just
right.
empower anyone that wants to write a book to do it. Just do it. There was some ups and downs. We'll talk about ups and downs throughout our fundraising careers and other areas. But I'm just so happy that it's out there, and I'm just hoping that it will touch people in a
Yeah.
positive way and bring some joy and some inspiration to them.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I appreciate it being part of your joy. So, this is Fundraising Confessions, the truth behind the profession. Why are there so few Black male fundraisers? Is our title today. So, can you start us off with telling us a little bit about your path into fundraising? And was there a pivotal moment or mentor that sparked your interest?
Excellent question. So my story is probably a little different than some, but I think we all have unique stories and how we got into the field itself. Due to some circumstances, which obviously are in the book, because it does have the word prison in there. I was released from prison
Yeah.
in 2007. 3 years later, I was in Anchorage, Alaska, and I was looking for work. I heard there was a position open as an executive director of a food service place, a food kitchen called Beans Cafe. So I went down there and I talked to the gentleman. I said, "Hey, I'm here to apply for the executive director position." And he looked at me and said, "I am the executive director. And as far as I know, there's not a position open." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he said, "But I do have a position as a development director." And I said to him, "Well, what do I develop?" Because I didn't know what it was. I just needed a job. Okay. And he did tell me it was fundraising. I said, "Okay." Can I see some of the numbers? And he shared me some of the numbers of the organization. And I said, "I can do this, this, and this," because I'd always been in sales. I always say I've been in sales my
Mhm.
whole life, legal and illegal, but I've been in sales. Okay.
Ah.
So I know how to sell something. So I went in there and got hired on trust. Another black man vouched
Mhm.
for, two black men
Mhm.
vouched for me.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
therefore I got into the field. And so that's
Mhm.
how I got in to the field.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, in your fundraising role, in your experience as a black man in this position, how did it shape your view in that first role, your early impressions, your professional journey?
Yeah, great question. Let me think on that one for a second. So
Take your time.
what? Yeah, when I went in, I didn't. I came in with some preconceptions, as we always do. I had some assumptions. I had assumptions that there were more African Americans in the field, or black, male or female, in the field. And
Hmm.
I went to my first AFP, Association of Fundraising Professionals meeting, and I was the only person of color in the room. No Hispanics, no blacks. It was a bunch of white females and maybe one or two
Hmm.
white males
Yeah.
out of 30 people. And so I was
Yeah.
really surprised and I was a little concerned.
Yeah.
I'm not in Kansas, I'm in Anchorage, Alaska, and I didn't understand why there were so few. Then a beautiful lady named Julie Varee, who had been an African American woman, had been in the field for about 20, 25 years, came
Hmm.
to probably the second or third meeting, and she was pivotal in me identifying and meeting my mentor, who I was to meet later on. But again, I was surprised. I was very surprised. But knowing that, I'm very comfortable in areas of a lot of white folks. I just keep it. I just want to keep it real. I'm just
This
very,
is
very
fundraising. This is fundraising confessions,
okay.
where
So I'm
we
going to keep it
keep it
real.
real. So
I've been
please
trying
keep
to
it
like
real because
cipher
we
my
need to have
thoughts.
the real conversation of what we go through, and
Okay,
then we want to talk about the opportunities, the
beautiful,
solutions, the
beautiful.
all of it, right?
So I went to Dartmouth. Dartmouth probably the widest. It is the widest of all the Ivies. It's in New Hampshire, upstate New Hampshire.
Yeah.
I was very comfortable around white folks, very
Hmm.
comfortable. I knew how I wanted to present. I presented, but I also know that I have a job to do. And I was a very good fundraiser, what we call a frontline fundraiser. But I
Right.
was very, very uncomfortable in those worlds. But I had concern of the lack of, especially black men in this field.
Yeah. Why is that though? Why are there so few black men in fundraising? Nonprofits, foundations, you have the academic structure, hospitals. You think of all the areas that have development teams, right? Like, why is that?
Quite a few reasons, and I've looked at this in depth over the years.
Hmm.
Number one, they're not exposed to it. That's number one. We're not exposed to the fundraising world, the development world, the advancement world.
Hmm.
Number two, and this is just as important, is that we don't see enough of us in the world. We go to conferences, we go to online teaching, and we don't see us speaking or from the stage. What can we aspire to? Unless, and this is again an
Hmm.
exception, you're part of the HBCU world. Okay, if you're in a
Hmm.
historically Black university or college, then you may be exposed to a
Hmm.
hierarchy and or leadership that's Black. But most of the time, you're in a setting
Hmm.
that the leadership is white, and then you're going to conferences where everybody's speaking from the stage is white, and or very few individuals of color, especially as a Black
Hmm.
man. That was a big
Hmm.
concern, and we'll talk about that a little later. So
Yeah.
that's number one. Number two is we have very poor retention of the Black male fundraiser. That is definitely an area. So you would see more Black fundraisers if they could stay in the field long enough. Because they come in. I've known literally hundreds that have come in, but do we keep them in, especially going on to that second, third, and fourth year? And then
Yeah.
do we have something that they can aspire to, whether in leadership, executive directorship, major gift work, dot, dot, dot. So
Yeah.
those are some. And then another thing, I'll be, again, we're going to keep it frank.
For sure.
Many Black men see this field as being feminine. It's being feminine, feminine. I didn't say that word.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they're like, oh, I got to do something that's more because we've been trained as Black men that
Hmm.
we have to be macho or that we have to be so into a male dominated or male field. And so they
Yeah.
see this as being a soft field. It is a beautiful field. And you can
Yeah.
still be all the man that you want to be within this field. Yes, it's predominantly women, but it's predominantly women at the lower levels. You go to some of the higher
Hmm.
levels in the hospitals and or advancement, which is the colleges, universities, you'll see quite a few more men in
Oh
those
yeah.
leadership positions.
Yeah, most of the men I see are the white men
Mhm.
who are champion, the $15 million capital campaigns and above, right? Like when you see a lot of that success, that's where that comes from. And then they may have the white female as the VP of development or the institutional giving, the major gift person, right? So when we talk about, that structural or cultural barriers, for
Mhm.
Black male fundraisers, where are they and why do they exist?
Why do the barriers exist?
Yeah, like the structural, cultural, like why do we think men think it's a feminine
Well,
job? And when we discuss the barriers and when we talk about getting them in this role, how do we make it more viewable? What are some of the things we can do that will increase the landscape of the position, because it's a very ethical job, right? So how do we show that in our representation of Black men when we think about structural and culturally, how do we get them in a space where it's a comfortable position for them to achieve to?
okay, so let's start facts. Facts are the nonprofit world is women. Okay,
Yeah.
I know the numbers.
Yeah.
I know the numbers of donors.
Yep.
80% of your donors are probably women. Okay, I can give
Yes.
you the exact number. Okay, but yeah, so 80% of women are more caring. Period. This is my belief, and I'm very strong in that. And so
Mhm.
they're drawn to the nonprofit world, which is literally helping others within our community. Let's just talk about
Yes.
the culture of philanthropy. Philanthropy. Okay.
Yes.
And so they're drawn to that. They're very comfortable in that because they want to help
Mhm.
animals,
Mhm.
environment, arts and culture, dot, dot, dot. Okay, so
Youth,
put
right. Mhm.
we put that there. Then what happens is that again, as men, we're thinking that we have to go down a certain field. Oh yeah, we can do frontline sales, but it has to be sales of cars or computers or whatever it may be, hardware
Mhm.
services. We
Mhm.
have to,
Mhm.
do different things that are definitely
Mhm.
male dominated. But again, what we have to do, and I say we, Rochelle, I,
Yeah.
we both are AFP board members. It's up to us to identify and allow Black men, or let's just talk about men of color, to
Yeah.
be feel comfortable in this environment. So when you go, there are many men that would go to their first AFP meeting or first AFP conference and see no Black men at the conference, okay? Or
Yeah.
the local AFP chapter meeting, and they're like, what's wrong with this picture? Why am I the only one? I don't have anybody that maybe I can just chop it up with, talk with, or
Right.
create friendship. And more importantly, I have no one that will mentor me because there's no other Black men
Right. Or make the connections.
or make the connections.
Mhm.
All these things that I have done and have had done for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
So then we get in and we're trying our best, and we do not many times, I'm not saying always, have the support from leadership, which is predominantly white, to support us as the Black male fundraiser. We
Yeah, there's
may,
no reciprocation.
yeah,
Mhm.
or just support. Hey,
Mhm.
I've talked to so many Black male fundraisers, and one of their difficulties is that they don't have funding to go to a conference. They won't
Right.
give me any funding, but they'll give XYZ, and they'll give me examples of other
Oh yeah.
individuals in their office, And then what happens is the individual doesn't meet their numbers because we are fundraisers. We raise money. Therefore, we
Right.
have numbers that we need to meet or activity, let's say sometime, and we
Mhm.
don't meet those. And then we get let go, or we're asked to, get off the bus. And then it just, it just makes it even easier for that individual in leadership that is white to say, oh, it doesn't work out with African American men.
Right.
They're not the ones for our team. Okay.
Right. You didn't
So,
make your numbers, so we can't
yeah,
afford to send you
right.
to a
But
five
why didn't you
thousand
make
dollar
yeah,
conference.
right. Or why didn't you make the numbers? Because you didn't support them. You didn't
Right.
provide resources for them. Maybe
Yeah.
they may need coaching. Maybe they need some mentorship. Maybe they need to go to another conference. Maybe they need to do some online training, whatever it may be. Did you provide those resources for them?
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's right. That's right. So can you talk a little bit about and have you ever encountered biases, unintentional or overt in the fundraising world, and how did it manifest or how did you navigate it?
I, I'll be honest, I don't see a lot of unintentional bias. Most of the bias I've seen has been intentional,
I know that's right.
So so you talking about stories. So I went out to speak with um, the blood bank. I
Hmm.
name names. I'm not going to name people's names. I'll name organizations. This is 12 years ago.
Yeah.
I went to
Yeah.
go to, and I know his name. It just popped up. So I go
Yeah.
out there to talk with the executive director, CEO, president of the blood bank, Alaska Blood Bank, and they
Hmm.
wanted a consultant, to come in and help. And I, at the time, was literally the only consultant in Alaska, literally the only consultant. And I'm very
Hmm.
good at what I do. I've worked with 140 clients.
Right. Of course. Right.
Anyway, so I'm out there and I'm talking to him and I tell him exactly what I can do because I know I can help you, da 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 da. And I send him a proposal that evening and I don't hear anything for like a week. And I give him a couple calls, but he's like ghosting me. And then I called someone I knew there who knew me from AFP. And I said, I haven't heard anything from the CEO. Do you know anything about the proposal? Because I was going to work with her, and she wanted me to work with. She goes, "Oh, you don't know?" I said, "No." He said, when he came back from the meeting with you, he said to the team, "Why didn't you tell me he was a black guy?" That's exactly what his
Mm-hmm.
words were.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know that one of them was a friend of mine. But why didn't you tell me he was a
Mm-hmm.
black guy? And never engaged with me, even though I'm the only consultant and I'm very good at what I do. So that's overt. And it's and my feeling today is I feel bad for that
Yeah.
individual. That's
Yeah.
where my compassion is unbounding. And so I feel it was it was a disservice to his nonprofit by not engaging with.
Yeah.
If you felt something was wrong with the proposal, I'm cool with that. But I have people that will vouch for me, and I know what I can do and could have done for your organization. It would have been a
That's right.
value. So,
Oh, that's right. That's
so,
right. Yeah, for sure. I know I've had my share of stories.
mhm.
So fundraising is often built on like that relationship building, right? Like you say, you all could have had a great relationship and would have benefited you both, right? But like when you think of cultural stereotypes, like when I think of that statement, why didn't anybody tell me he was a black man? Do cultural stereotypes, about black men ever hinder or shift donor perceptions of you?
Of me or of the other individuals in the field? I just want to make sure I answer this.
Of you.
It may in the beginning,
Mm,
but once people understand I'm an expert, I have
right.
no problem saying that. I am
That's
an
right.
expert in my field. I've been teaching for 15 years. I've worked
That's
with
right.
140 clients. I am good in fundraising. I'm very good.
That's
So I can articulate the solution to your problem, Mr. and Mrs. Potential Client. Okay.
right.
So don't worry about how I look or how I
Mm-hmm.
come across from your assumptions. I can do the job. And I have people that will vouch for my ability to do the job. Look up my results, talk to a few
Yeah.
people. And so
Yeah.
knowing that people have assumptions. This is let's talk about another one because one of the
Yeah.
biggest concerns I've seen lately is African American men doing major gift work. And I've done quite a bit of major gift work. And what happens is sometimes team leaders are
Mm-hmm.
hesitant to put black men out there as major gift officers because they look at their portfolio. Okay, so my portfolio in that area is predominantly 60% Jewish, older Jewish couples. How
Mm.
comfortable are they going to be with this young black man
Yeah.
with a beard, but shaved? Because I always tell my
Yeah.
guys, got to look good.
Yeah.
How comfortable
Yeah.
are they going to be with this individual that's so different from probably their life experience? Okay.
Yeah.
But please, please, if anyone's listening from that level, allow us to produce. Allow
That's
us to
that's right.
produce. And we will produce if we are competent. But again, and I want every black man that hears this, and I
Mm-hmm.
teach this all the time, you still got to produce.
That's right.
Don't worry about the excuses. Don't worry about the justifications, the rationalization. If they're not sending you to a class, pay, invest in yourself.
That's
Okay.
right.
That's what I did.
Me
I didn't
too.
wait for someone else to send me or my boss to send me. I said, hey,
Yeah.
this is what I have. Do you mind if I take the time off to go to this conference? I'll take care of it myself. And half the time he said, no, we'll take care of it. You're doing such a great job. Okay.
Yeah.
So but before the justifications, rationalizations, and or excuses why you didn't produce, make sure that you've done everything on your end to become good at what you do, let alone great.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've been doing this so long. I remember when people would call to make a donation over the phone, and once they realized the person they were talking to was a person of color, there were some challenges giving that credit card number over the phone.
Let me
So
just say this. many times, and I've been told this, I don't sound like I'm Black. People tell me that.
Oh yeah.
And well,
Yeah.
remember, I had talked to that gentleman to set
Yeah.
the meeting up. He's
Yeah.
not going, and
Yeah.
so it doesn't really matter if you sound like, because I most of the time, especially as African Americans, we can
Yeah.
tell,
We can
okay,
tell.
but
Yeah.
sometimes they can't tell. And
Right.
again, it's up to us. They're going to make an assumption upon meeting you. Remember, we talk about that. How do you come across, in your appearance, your demeanor, and or your expression verbally? How do you come
Yeah.
across? And
That's right.
you can learn that though. I sort of teach that.
Yeah. 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 Um, so if we think about, organizations, right? Like internally, recruitment, what suggestions do you have for like attracting and developing Black male fundraisers and
So
retaining
yeah,
them?
that's the key. So
Mhm.
one is be intentional that I want diversity within my team members. Okay. That's what we're really looking for is where diversity. It's number one. Number two, be intentional if you're wanting, people, men of color. Okay. Because really the diversity a lot of times is that we want to get some men on the team. We have four
Yeah.
women, three women. I've worked with this many times. Okay, so let's bring in men of color. Number two, skill sets. They may not have the skill sets of the other individuals coming in. There may be on paper someone that looks better, white female, that looks
Hmm.
like they could be more competent. But given the opportunity, and now that's up to you once we get them in the door, is to invest in their success. Invest
Yeah.
in their success. And the number one thing I would say is invest in education and invest in potentially, uh, yeah, online and in-person education. AFP, get them in the association. AHP,
Yes.
AFP case, get them in, okay,
Yeah.
and then support them on the way. And almost as important is check in with them
Yeah.
consistently. What do you have any questions, any concerns, any thoughts,
Right.
any friction internally, let
Yeah.
alone externally? Because this is
Yeah.
another thing I want to say to the black male fundraiser that is listening. To be a great fundraiser, you have to fundraise internally.
Hmm.
You have to work with your vertical and you got to work horizontal. And I'm
That's
talking
right.
about build relationships with your peers and build relationships with individuals above and below you. If there are people below
Yes.
you, the data records person, whatever, take them
That's
out to
right.
lunch, take them out.
Finance, everybody.
Finance, yeah, big one is finance.
Yes.
Marketing, big one. So anyway,
Yes.
but
Yes.
build those relationships. But there's always a caveat, not always, but there is a caveat. Be understanding and careful about going over people. What I
Yeah.
do is I talk to my directly, say, do you mind if I meet with the CDO? Do you mind if I meet with the vice provost at advancement? And
Mhm.
if they have any concerns or challenges, cool. You'll see them at events. You'll see them at events. You have
Right.
to say,
Right. Right. Or we
maybe,
can meet together,
yeah, yeah, all
and
three of
be,
us. Amazing.
that's right. That's right. And be
Sure.
transparent so that everybody understands your work and your journey and your processes.
And the greatest question you can ask a leadership person is, what do you recommend or suggest I do next?
Hmm. Hmm. Right.
Because now you're asking them for their experience, their knowledge, their, spending years in the field. What do you think would be best for me to
Yeah.
grow in this position or grow as a person?
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your mentors or
Mhm.
people, people of
Love it.
color have championed your growth. I love it when you shout out people and talk about people who've been instrumental to you in this field, and how critical is that support for diversifying our field.
Okay, so the only reason we're on this conversation is because I had a mentor named Alphonse Brown Jr.
I love
Period.
that. Hey, Alphonse. I
Alphonse.
love that.
So what happened was I meet Julie Varee, black woman.
Mm-hmm.
She said, you need to
Mm-hmm.
go to Icon. I said, Icon, what's Icon? It's the international
Yeah.
conference. You need to go. I said, okay, if you say I need to go, I trust you. I went. And on my first day there, I'm like a deer in the headlights because it's 2,000, 3,000 people. This is 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm walking with her because I don't know anybody. I've never been this is my first year. And she goes, I want to introduce you to someone. And this is important. I love this story. So
Mm-hmm.
Alphonse, who is probably 10, 15 years my junior, he's been in the field for 30, 40 years from the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking to someone else. Julie comes up to me and said, this is a young man from, I wasn't that young, but this is a man from Anchorage, Alaska. I want to introduce you to Alphonse.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's new to the fundraising field
Yeah.
and he's very eager to learn. And I remember Alphonse turned to the individual he was speaking to and said, do you mind? I would love to talk to this young man, like this man. And we ended up
Mm-hmm.
speaking for the next 2 hours. And
Yeah.
he is still my mentor 14 years later. So I have that example. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's up to me to give it back. Okay. I started mentoring just young black men in 2010. Been doing it for 15 years. I have a group. I have a black men's book study. I have
Mm-hmm.
mentees, many mentees. At one point, I had 28 of them,
Yes, I love it.
but I have 10 now,
Mm-hmm.
and so what do you do for a mentor in the fundraising world? My goal is always is to engender dreams. What is your dream? What is your aspiration? What is your goal in the fundraising world or even in life? I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
do everything within my power to mentor and support you in that, to engender that dream, make it a truth. And so I've supported gentlemen going to conferences financially. I'm not bragging or anything. I'm just saying that's
That's
what
right.
I've done. I
That's
started
right.
Men of Color and Development. I started that. I
That's
founded
right.
that organization. 400
Yes.
plus men in there now. Okay.
Yes.
I was on the
Congratulations.
AADO board, was on
Mm-hmm.
their first board and then I advocated
Shout
as you
out Men of Color and Development and AADO.
hosted, look them up, motib.org.
That's right.
But the other thing is I was on the AFP Global Board for 5 years. Every year I
Yeah.
advocated for black men, and
Yeah.
we got scholarships. And one year
Yeah.
we had 20 that came in at no cost, room, board, and the conference itself. And then, but the
Yes.
most important is I see you. That's what I do when I
Yes.
meet for. I see you. Where are
That's
you
right.
at? And so you're talking about something I'm super passionate about.
That's right.
And I think it's so important. This is the most important thing that I left MOSID with when I came off of their board
Mm-hmm.
is that we had set up mentoring where we have 11, 12 mentors and we have 40, 50 young men being mentored. So we set up hopefully we'll continue as generations
Mm-hmm.
of black men mentoring black men in the
Yeah.
area of fundraising and life.
Yeah. 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 I love that. So so when you think about community impact, right? Because we're fundraisers, right? In the nonprofit world. So when you think about, how you identify as a black man, does that inform the causes and communities that you're also passionate about?
Yes. AADO, Men of Color and Development,
Yes.
AFP, African American Affinity Group. Yes,
Right.
yes,
Right.
so much. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but what I've had to do, I'm 62 years old, and I'm trying to compact down. I'm trying to. I don't want to use it. I'll never retire. I'll never stop mentoring. I tell my guys that I mentor
Yeah.
that it's not a race, it's not a sprint. I've been mentoring some of the same gentlemen for 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to spend more time, family, things of that nature. But going back, what I pared down to is Black men, and my
Mm-hmm.
Black men's book study, which is free. If anybody's interested, contact me. If you're a
Mm-hmm.
man of color and you want to do a free book study or discourse on a nonfiction book, that's what we do every two
Yeah.
weeks. And then, of course, I do the mentoring. I have 10 Black men that I mentor at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm always available for other individuals. And I do. I have friends or past mentees who call me or email me, Ken, I have a challenge or a concern, or I have a celebration I wanted to share with you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
let's say this last one. The reason I wrote the book is so that I could touch more, especially impact more Black men. And
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like I'm just a drop in the ocean, but at least
Mm-hmm.
I'm dropping. At least I'm a
That's
drop.
right. That's right. That's right. So, so when you think about Black men and like aspiring to be leaders in the fundraising world, what particular skills or mindsets would you recommend that Black men cultivate? So, you as a mentor, how do you help them cultivate those leadership skills?
Start small,
Hmm.
work your way up. What I mean by, and it's not even work your way up. Start small. This is what I always recommend. Get on a board. Get on a small
Hmm.
board. Get on a committee. First of all, you got to understand governance. You've got to understand leadership. And then
Yeah.
start watching people, start identifying the traits of great leaders. And there are specific traits of great. There's usually humility. There's the ability to communicate. The other thing, and this has been a big one lately in the last year or two, is I'm trying to get more and more Black men on the stage. Just today, Rochelle, I did
Hmm.
2 RFPs to speak at Icon, and I
Hmm.
called up 2 of my mentees because I can do it by myself. And I said, hey, I want to get you on the stage. Would you be willing to
Yes.
co-present with me? I'll write it all up. I'll create the slide deck, all that. And they're like, I'm so honored. I'm honored. And so
Yes.
Chris Beck and Gerard Williams, I mentioned
Yes.
his name. But see, that's what I'm
Yes.
trying to do. I'm trying to get them comfortable, and it's a lot less fear than trying to do it by yourself.
That's right.
Co-present with me, and
That's right.
I'll be with you. I'll give you plus deltas. I'll do everything I need to do. But the
Yes.
leadership is a skill, and leadership can be learned. And then there's also leadership training that you can do. Take it
That's
because
right.
we don't come in. Some of us, hey, people say, are you born leaders? I don't believe in born leaders. I just believe that they started leading at an earlier age. They were the team captain, on a sports team. They were on the
That's right.
debate team. And they were the lead debater. They learned leadership at high school, junior high age. Therefore, when they became through college and then going into their professional career, they already had leadership skills. And they
That's right.
understood that a leader identifies a goal and then empowers the team in alignment with whatever the goal or aspiration is. We have to
Yeah.
articulate the message. We have to support our individuals. We have to give praise in public. And then if we have any deltas and or constructive criticism, we do that privately. I could teach leadership
Yeah.
the next hour.
Yeah.
But anyway, but
Yeah.
again, let me just say this one other thing. It is
Yeah.
up
Take your
to
time.
us. This is what one of the things that what we did at MOSIG is one of the key things is we brought in seasoned African American men in the fundraising field so you could see a leader. You could see a Juan Magruder or Alphonse or Art. We brought in Art, who was
Yeah.
from a couple of years. That's how I met
Yeah.
Art. Okay.
Yeah.
So we brought in all these leaders. I went around to all the boards, AHP, CASE, CFRE. Did I miss one? But let's say And I looked for any Black man that was in that on the boards of one of these organizations and put them in front of Mosid.
Yeah.
I set up a panel of all the Black men who have been on the board for AFP Global. There was only 6 of us, now 7
Mm,
with our new
mm.
gentleman, with Alderman. But it was only 6 of us.
Right.
And then Charles
Right.
Stevens, of course, has passed. But I got
Mhm.
Sharette Stokes and Richard Martin. So you could see, individuals that have obtained, this is 65 years that AFP has been around, 64, 65
Yeah.
years. And there's only been 6 Black men that's been on the board. What's wrong with that picture? Okay. So
Right. That's
I
right.
and I want to see more. And again, this can be done at the local level, but you have to learn leadership. I don't believe that you
Yeah.
get it through osmosis, whether you learn it young or
Right.
old. But if you want to learn
Right.
it, there are places to learn it.
Right, exactly. And that's such great advice, Ken, especially with its graduation season.
Mhm.
You have your college, your grad school graduates, people that are pivoting careers because of the nonprofit landscape. So that is great advice. And so when we think about resources, like you've mentioned several of them, like I'm also a member of AADO, which is African American Development Network, Officers Network, right? But what
Mhm.
other groups? I'm also a part of the African American Affinity Group with AFP, which is the
Mhm.
Association of Fundraising Professionals. But are there any other trainings that we have not mentioned or networks that you would like to point Black male fundraisers towards? Just want to make sure we've
Well,
covered.
men of color in development is number one. You
Well,
know,
yes.
yeah, and then of course, and then AADO. So look for men of color in development. In fact, Art, is going to be speaking. I
Hmm.
think June 30th, if I'm
Okay.
correct. Yeah, June 30th. But just go to the Men of Color in Development
Okay.
.org. And then, of course, AADO, we have a conference coming up in September. I'll be there. I'll be speaking, but there'll be
Okay.
multitude. And it's also, you have to get comfortable around knowing that there are other African American men that are in your field. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then I would look at CASE. Okay. So that's
Hmm.
going to be for those in advancement. They definitely have some larger conferences where there will be multiple African Americans, because we're a lot of, again, coming out of the HBCUs, but other ones coming from other colleges and universities. And then
Yeah.
if you are in healthcare, definitely AHP. One of my good friends who also lives in Bellingham is on the AHP board, Black man. Okay, so there's definitely individuals in that field. And then I'm trying to think anything outside of fundraising. And then outside of fundraising, uh, I would say there are, the 100 Black men. You can look for those type of organizations. Look up, if you are looking to be mentored, contact me. I may
Hmm.
not be able to do it, but I know someone that can. That's
Yeah.
one of the great things as being a resource, and I believe that for both of us, Rochelle.
That's right.
If I don't know it, I probably know who does. I mean,
That's right.
like 99%. I'm talking about any question in fundraising,
Hmm.
because I
Hmm.
don't know everything. If you come to me for a
Hmm.
capital campaign, I'm not the guy. Okay, I'm just not the guy. If you're coming to me for community centered fundraising, talk to Vuli. I'm not the guy.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
not saying that in a negative way, but I'm not going to fake the funk just so you
That's
like
right.
it. Okay, I'm
That's
always
right.
going to keep it real.
That's right. That's right. That's good. So when we think about the future of
Mhm.
our profession, what would success look like in terms of Black male representation and influence in fundraising?
It's going to increase. Period. 100%. Why do you
Yeah.
say that, Ken? Because we have a strong AADO, because we have a strong men of color in development, because we
Okay.
have a mentorship program, because
Hmm.
we have Black men speaking from the stage.
Hmm.
This 10, 15 years ago, we did not have this, especially at the level. AADO was around, but we didn't have it at the level.
That's right.
We have
That's right.
AADO 3,000 people, or maybe it's more than 3,000. I know there's
Yeah.
400, 450
Yeah.
in men of color in development. There was
Yeah.
zero 3 years ago, zero. Okay. We got the African American Affinity Sessions. We're getting 50, 60, 100 people at
Yeah.
the ICON International Conference. There
Yeah.
are resources so you do not have to be alone. You don't have to feel that you're alone and that no one is supporting you on your journey.
That's
But it's
right.
up to you to avail yourself of the resources that are out there. So I see great things happening. I see great things. I think there's going to be another black man who's going to be the chair of AFP at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I think I see
Mm-hmm.
that happening. I
Yeah.
see more black men speaking from the stage. I see more black men being chief development officers, development directors, and/or vice provosts of advancement, whatever
Mm-hmm.
title you want to have. And I see many more black men becoming executive directors of nonprofits with a knowledge or a background in fundraising. I
That's
see
right.
that.
That's
More
right.
black male chairs of
That's right.
nonprofits and for profits for that matter.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the conversations I've had, recently was the new president and CEO, Art Taylor of AFP. And it was about how nonprofit boards and CEOs and who don't understand the fundraising journey, right? That the
True.
profession has not done a great job of educating the non fundraisers. So, in our final reflection, what are some takeaways that you would give nonprofit boards and CEOs about emerging fundraisers, equity in our profession, understanding what the profession is?
Number one thing I would say, stop the talk and do the action. Just stop the talk. I remember when George Floyd situation arose with George Floyd, and I said it right then. I said it on
Mm-hmm.
the webinar. We got two
Mm-hmm.
years. We got 2 years. We're going to be the flavor of the week for 2 years. And now
Mm-hmm.
you see all the pushback, all the anti-DEI. So I'm speaking to the boards and the board chairs, especially. Be intentional and just do it. Don't give me excuses as we can't find anybody. You didn't look hard enough. Don't give me excuses. Our environment is predominantly white. Okay, there's black folks in every city and state in this country. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
period. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
then don't set them up to fail. Don't set them up to fail. Yeah, you might have to give a little more resources to make
Mm-hmm.
a success of the person of color. It's worth it because this is your community. This is
Mm-hmm.
your people. This is your community. This is the people you're bringing in. So give the resources that are needed.
That's right.
Give that space, give that grace. And then if there is a setback, don't assume that is everyone in the community or everyone within the African American community because you had a setback with one or one person left you. They might have left you because they have a greater opportunity to provide for their family. That's why they left
That's
you. It
right.
wasn't about
That's
you.
right.
So anyway, I get a little strong on this. It's just
Mm-hmm.
what we did is we did some action. 100. We did action at AFP. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sometimes
Mm-hmm.
people get this, and I know this, and you were a board member too. We would get flack that we're not doing enough. And my thing is, do you know what baseline was? Do you understand what baseline was 5 years ago? And what we did,
Right.
we had a black woman chair. We had five African Americans on the board, the most we've ever had. We're
Yeah.
fighting battles on
That's right.
behalf of the whole community of AFP, and also they're fighting that battle for the African American community, okay,
As well.
as well.
That's right. That's right. I appreciate this so much, Ken. We have so many takeaways from this conversation. Um, when I think about representation, the systematic barriers, just in the basis of recruitment alone, the perception, um, mentorship. We talk about storytelling, our equity. So, are there any other takeaways you would like to mention as we close out our conversation?
Yeah, I have a takeaway. Thank you. I tell people, they used to ask me when I first got started, what do you
Mhm.
do for a living? I said, I thank people for a living. That's what I do. I thank people for a living. But I
Yeah.
want to thank you and I want to honor you and I want to respect your courage in starting this podcast because there's always, usually, again, an assumption, some trepidation and or it's going to take capacity of time, potentially money, for me to set this up. But there's voices that need to be heard, and also
Yes.
people need to hear my voice because I have something to provide that is a value added to our communities. So I want to just tell you, I so respect that you're doing this, and I so respect and honor your commitment to our sector, your commitment to AFP, and your commitment to people of color, especially African Americans in the fundraising field, Rochelle. You're phenomenal. And I'm just so glad I can call you a friend. I really am.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you were one of the first people I met at AFP. So I appreciate you. I appreciate having your number in my phone that I can call or text with it, like, with this interview. So I appreciate it. I knew you were going to bring exactly what I envisioned for this podcast, which is an opportunity to share our stories, but also in a way that it can help those that are listening. So thank you for tuning in to the episode of Fundraising Confessions, the truth behind the profession. A huge thank you to our guest with much appreciation, Mr. Ken Miller, for sharing such candid insights on why there are so few Black male fundraisers and for lighting the way forward. If you found this conversation valuable, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share with a colleague who cares about building more diverse, inclusive teams. You can find show notes, resources, and ways to connect at consultjerry.com. And I will have all of Ken's information and references listed in all of the notes. So join us next time as we uncover more unfiltered stories from the fundraising front lines because every voice matters when we're shaping the future of philanthropy. So until then, keep championing equity in your work and never stop telling the truth behind the profession. And I'll let Ken take us out by plugging his book on where we can get it.
You can get my book, Becoming Ken, A Black Man's Journey from Prison, from the Ivy Leagues to prison and back again at Amazon and also on Audible. There's the ebook, there's a soft cover, and there's a hardcover at Amazon.com. Very appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you.